the world is ripping us off because we get to consume what they produce. We're ripping them off by not paying for it. We give them, or they give us real goods, and we just give them pieces of paper. So they're the ones that have been getting ripped off. But yes, Trump is right that this has been, reducing our net wealth because we've been selling off our cows to buy milk, because foreigners are buying our stocks and our real estate with the money they earn selling us stuff. But the short-term trade-off is that we have a higher standard of living. And that's what's about to be lost. And that's what the president doesn't understand when he promises an immediate economic boom. The transition that he wants is going to be very painful. And it's going to take years and years before there's light at the end of the tunnel. In the meantime, stocks have to go down, real estate, bonds have to go down, interest rates have to go up, actually. The economy has to go through a serious recession that will probably span the entirety of his presidency. The problem is that Trump hasn't prepared the country for that. Trump has promised something he can't deliver, which is an immediate boom. He's focusing on the jobs he thinks we're going to get in the factories. Well, we're not going to make that many factories, so there's not going to be many jobs. But most people aren't factory workers. They're going to lose jobs. And even if they don't lose their jobs, their paychecks are going to go not go as far, because everything they want to buy is going to be much more expensive.
Yeah,
and the tariffs are not on the rest of the world. The tariffs are on Americans. That's who pays the tariffs. The Chinese don't pay our tariffs. The Europeans don't pay our tariffs. The Mexicans, the Canadians don't pay them. Americans pay them. He's just been misinformed by his, people that he has surrounded himself with, who are economic ignoramuses, who don't understand, the consequences of what they've proposed and what they've convinced Trump to do. Although Trump, if you look back historically, Trump has always talked about, other countries ripping us off. So he's kind of predisposed to believe some of the nonsense that some of his advisors are blowing in his ear. But he's hoping to, reinvigorate our once great manufacturing base. And I would share that goal. But tariffs aren't going to do it. You have to understand why we lost all those factories in the first place. And putting on tariffs isn't going to bring them back. But what we need to do to bring them back, they're not doing. We need massive cuts to government spending. We need a lot more deregulation. We need higher interest rates. We need to reform the entitlements. We need to cut Social Security, Medicare. We need to cut defense. We're not doing any of the things that we need to do. And we need to massive deregulation in the labor markets, the unions. There are a lot of reasons that we're not manufacturing in this country. And you can't just put a Band-Aid on it with a tariff and assume that everything is going to heal. The tariffs aren't even reciprocal. He's just calling them reciprocal so he can use that power that Congress gave him. I think it's all illegal because it's not reciprocity. Trump is putting tariffs on nations that don't even have tariffs. And the tariffs that he's imposing are way out of proportion to the tariffs other countries have. Because where he's getting these ridiculous numbers is he's come up with some, BS formula that basically claims that any nation's surplus with us is the result of tariffs, even if they don't have tariffs, or even if the tariffs are so low that it barely makes a difference. So when he says, Europe has 38% tariffs, so we're going to put 20% tariffs on. Europe is maybe 4% tariffs. So what we're doing is not reciprocal. It's pure protectionism. I think it's illegal, but he's doing it anyway. But that's his goal. The goal is not to raise revenue. The tariffs are too high. The goal is protection. But I don't think they're going to work. I think they will raise some revenue, a lot less than they expect. I think that's because Americans are going to pay these tariffs. But a lot of Americans aren't going to pay the tariffs because they're not going to buy the goods. Not going to sell the low end because they know the consumer on the low end won't be able to afford, the extra 20%. But on the high end, yeah, they'll just jack up the prices 20%, and the rich people will just pay 20% more for the higher end Mercedes. They will sell fewer. I think what will happen is people will drive their used Mercedes a little bit longer before they buy a new one because of the higher prices. But of course, what's going to happen to the used car prices, if you've got one of these low-end Mercedes Benzes that they don't bring in anymore, your used car is going to go up because people are going to have to buy them used because they won't be subject to tariffs if they're already here. I made fun of Jerome Powell almost a year ago when somebody asked him about stagflation, and he kind of laughed it off and he said, I don't see the stag, I don't see the inflation. And I said, well, he's obviously blind. And my prediction was that that comment about no signs of stagflation would go down in history with subprime is contained and inflation is transitory, because he was completely wrong. Not only is this stagflation, but it's recession, severe recession, and high inflation. It's going to be far worse than anything we had in the 1970s. You know, when people say, oh, this stagflation, oh, it's not like the 70s, they're right. It's way worse than the 70s. The tariffs hit right away, right? But the tariffs aren't paid until the goods are imported. And if you noticed, our trade deficits in the U.S. for the past few months have been off the charts. And so what I think is that a lot of companies saw the tariffs coming and they ordered some inventory. So they have to work that inventory off first. So those products can be sold without the tariffs. Now, I think they will raise prices somewhat because they realize that this is their last chance to make money. Because once they run out of those goods, you know, they have to pay the tariff on the new goods, and their customers probably will be priced out of the market, a lot of them. So you'll start to see some initial increases in prices, but it won't fully hit until they run out of stuff. And, you know, there's going to be a mad dash. I mean, some people are going to rush to the stores and, you know, they're going to buy new sneakers, for example. You know, maybe they'll buy 3 or 4 pairs, knowing that, you know, they're going to wear out. They'll want to get another pair. They're going to wear out because all those sneakers are going to get so much more expensive. So some of these companies, you know, could see a rush of sales, you know, now until they use up what they got. And then their business is going to dry up, you know, substantially. We're going to be reversing a process that, you know, has on the surface been benevolent, but it really wasn't if you understood it. But now it's going to be very sinister. See, what's been happening is we create inflation, printing money. We export it to the rest of the world, and they ship us the stuff that they make. So we have goods to buy and the money goes abroad. And so that keeps prices down and we get more stuff. Then the foreigners take the dollars they earn and buy our bonds, buy our stocks. That gives us lower interest rates and a higher stock market. So we get wealthier on paper, we get to borrow cheap, and we get all kinds of consumer goods we didn't produce, and they're low cost, right? What's going to happen now is all that inflation is now going to move from Wall Street back to Main Street. We're not going to have as big trade deficits anymore. So we're not going to be able to export as much of our inflation. It's going to stay here. We're going to have more money chasing fewer goods. So a big increase in prices. Foreigners are not going to buy as much U.S. stocks and bonds. So we get a lower stock market and higher interest rates. So that's the reverse of what we've been enjoying, right? And so it's going to be the worst, you know, thing for Americans because they're going to be getting poorer financially as their cost of living is skyrocketing. And many Americans are going to lose their jobs. So we're going to go through the worst economy in modern memory. Now, I don't think anybody alive today has seen an economy that's going to be as bad as this one. Now, it may get better eventually. You know, maybe we get the benefits of AI and stuff like that. But in the short run, things are going to get very, very bad. Yeah, and that's horrible for the Republicans because, you know, Trump just blew them up. I mean, the Democrats were in disarray. You know, the party was really in shambles, and this is going to galvanize them because Trump is going to be the villain that did this. They're going to be able to say he inherited a great economy, which he didn't, but then he destroyed it. And the Republicans are going to be out of Congress in the midterms. I mean, the Democrats are going to get the House and the Senate. First of all, he needed to level with the public about how bad it's going to be. He promised a boom, an immediate economic boom, and he's not going to deliver that. So he's not going to have any credibility with the public. Neither are the Republicans who rallied around him. And I think that they're going to give up because we're going to be, in a severe recession. We're going to be maybe in another financial crisis. And they're going to be going back to government stimulus. They're going to be going back to QE and stimulus checks. And all that's going to do is, throw gasoline on the inflation fire. After vilifying the rest of the world and imposing all these tariffs, now we're asking them to keep buying our bonds. They're not going to buy our bonds. So who's going to buy them? And here's the problem. The president wants us to reindustrialize the country and build factories. Well, if we're spending our money building factories, how do we have money to buy government bonds? And if we end up having to buy all these government bonds, there's no money to build factories. It's all crowded out. So nobody is connecting these obvious dots. We can't do what the president wants us to do. We need to do it, but it's not possible unless we have a massive collapse. First, we actually have to cut Social Security and Medicare and defense. We may even have to default on our debt in order to free up the resources to build these factories. I mean, obviously, he's not going to like the stock market reaction. So, who knows how they'll try to, get out of jail here and save face. I don't know. But, if he backtracks, remember, he announced these tariffs with such fanfare. I mean, he even proclaimed like a national holiday, so Liberation Day. How's he going to now turn that around and say it was an April Fool's joke? But so he's kind of wedded to this.